"It's only for a week, Mike," Rachel said, rolling her luggage out the door. She didn't make the slightest attempt to reassure me. I was very persistent in persuading Rachel to give up the seminar and come on vacation with me, but to no avail. She insisted that her chances of promotion at the insurance company where she worked would increase almost exponentially if she attended the week-long seminar in Boston. I, on the other hand, insisted that she didn't need the promotion badly enough to give up that much of our family time. We had been married for 22 years. Both of our children were already in college, and I wanted my wife to spend more time with me and less time at work. Rachel had planned to take a week's vacation from work a couple weeks ago, but now she was on her way to a damn seminar about who knows what. She wasn't looking at things as clearly as I was. Her company had a practice where employees had possible promotions dangled in front of them if they worked a little harder, a little longer, and a little better than their competitors. I first noticed this practice over a decade ago, but she just couldn't understand the situation as well as I did. In those 10 years, Rachel had managed to get 2 promotions. I was convinced they were more like participation trophies. Showing up to work was enough to get a new title or position, but it reflected damn little on the paycheck. When I suggested a few years ago that she look for a new job, she had an embarrassment. "I put a lot of time, effort, and training into my job. I'm moving up in my career. A new job means a fresh start. Sometimes I get the impression that you are jealous of my success." The fact that I was an engineer making more than twice her salary meant nothing in her world. I was a member of the good old boys club, and I was paid so well because of my gender, not because of my contribution to the success of the company. The funny thing was that Rachel did our tax returns. She must have seen the difference in our income. I knew Rachel was the queen of denial before we were even married. Unfortunately, I was never able to determine how deep and swift that river was, at least not until she refused to acknowledge that her employers were taking advantage of her hard work and dedication. I didn't doubt that some recently hired employees were getting as much as Rachel was, but I knew that the very mention of such a possibility contradicted its reality. It saddened me as I reflected on my marriage. The last time Rachel and I had sex was the day before Christmas, and now it was June. I'm 44 years old, in relatively good shape, and with a healthy libido. Suddenly a thought flashed through my mind. Zelda Zane had mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, but I hadn't had time to fully realize it. I really didn't have a real marriage. I was basically leading the life of a monk, occasionally dining with a frigid nun. Why the hell was I putting up with this? It was almost impossible to please Rachel. When had she taken my balls, and why hadn't I even noticed it? I thought about it for a while. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and looked through my contact list. It took a minute, but Zelda Zane's name and number appeared on the screen. I grinned to myself, realizing I only had to get to the end of the list. What names could there be after Zelda Zane? Zeus? Zorro? Zelda picked up the phone on the second ring. "Mike!" Zelda and I spent some time together at a mutual neighbor's Memorial Day party, and we both had a little too much to drink. It forced us to reveal personal issues that we usually kept to ourselves. For some reason, but not surprisingly, Rachel was working on this holiday. I was without a date at the party, and Zelda didn't notice it right away. She always acted like she liked Rachel more than me, but she was surprisingly friendly when Rachel wasn't around to protect her interests. "Isn't Rachel here today, Mike?" Zelda asked. "She's crazy to let a good-looking husband like you go to a party alone. A lot of those desperate bitches will be trying to get in your pants." "I don't seem to have a problem keeping them at bay," I replied with a chuckle. "A piece of ass and a bike ride would probably send me to the hospital. I'm in a dry spell and things don't look too promising in the near future." "By dry period, you mean a few weeks?" Zelda practically whispered in my ear. "How many weeks has it been since Christmas?" I asked, starting to calculate in my mind. "Wow, that's over 20 weeks, Zelda exclaimed a little too loudly for me. "You must be ready to explode even though you've been handling everything on your own, so to speak." "I'm not looking for sympathy," I said quickly. "You asked, and I told you. Please don't make it more than it is. I should have kept my mouth shut. It's no reason to brag. I've never heard of a married man wanting to set a record for abstinence." Poor guy. Why don't we go to my place and resolve this situation to our mutual benefit? Zelda suggested. Haha, good joke, but you probably better not joke like that, I replied. It'll be your fault if I grab you and drag you into those bushes over there. Start dragging, Zelda objected, holding out her hand to me. You say that now, but you'll have a whole different story when the police show up and drag my ass to jail already, I predicted. Will the cops come here before or after you take me to Nirvana? Zelda inquired. I hope you're kidding. I'll turn you into a quivering mass of protoplasm long before they send me to prison, I boasted. It won't take long, Zelda replied. You've already half convinced me just by suggesting it. Why don't we go to my place to avoid the police, nosy neighbors, and grass stains on our knees? It suddenly occurred to me that Zelda might be serious. Had I unknowingly drawn her into a possible liaison that could lead to the breakup of the marriage? Zelda, I didn't mean to mislead you. I'm sorry if that's the case, I apologized. I am a married man. I took vows and I meant them. You're a beautiful woman, but I don't want to have an affair or anything like that. Mike, you're not married. You don't have a wife. You have some dried-up whore who does everything she can to ruin the best years of your life. A real wife doesn't do that. It's definitely not love. She doesn't treat you the way you deserve to be treated. Your loyalty is admirable, and it's one of the things I like about you, but it's completely misplaced, Zelda reasoned. When my husband was alive, I tried to be available to him whenever he wanted to see me. I was so glad I was able to do that. He got sick and died so quickly that I wouldn't have time to make up for the lack of affection between us. I hate his death, but I don't regret our life together one bit. I highly doubt you can say the same. The interaction with Zelda was still fresh in my mind almost 2 weeks later. She was right. I no longer had my wife or my marriage. I had my right hand and a few evenings spent alone. That wasn't the way marriage was supposed to be. As soon as Zelda answered the phone, I was already tongue-tied. Hi, Zelda. I was wondering, if everything's okay. How's your garden? Where the hell did that question come from? I should have planned the conversation before I called. She would never have been able to tell what I was really calling about. I was too cowardly to ask her directly if she wanted to have more fun. Mike, are you calling because you want to have sex with me? Zelda asked without any preamble. How could she guess when all I asked was about her garden? Was she being serious or was she just laughing at me? I knew I had to proceed carefully so as not to offend her. I've been thinking, Rachel's going away for a week and Get your ass over here. The door will be unlocked. I'll be on my knees and naked, Zelda promised. I didn't mean to imply that you'd want me to come over if you're busy or you have company or you want to watch a baseball game or... Mike! Shut up and get over here. I'm hanging up so I can get ready. That's great! As I put the phone in my pocket, I considered Zelda's invitation. It seemed simple enough. I couldn't think of a reason to think she didn't want me to actually go to her place. After 22 years of marriage, to hear a woman say she'd be waiting for me on her knees was hard to believe, but this minuscule possibility left me no choice. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Not knowing what to do after the 5-minute drive to Zelda's house, I knocked somewhat timidly on her door. I was surprised when the door immediately opened. A fully dressed Zelda greeted me with a chaste embrace and an obvious smirk. You didn't think I'd really be naked and on my knees, did you, Mike? I was teasing you to see how long it would take you to get here. You got here in less than 5 minutes. I'm impressed. Usually the red light on Hickory Street takes forever. Well, there was no other traffic, so You ran a red light? You must be very excited. Am I flattered, or would you have done the same if Mrs. Drysdale had made the same promise? I must admit she's not badly preserved and probably has a lot of experience. After all, she's almost 90 years old. I can't say whether I would have refused if she had made the same promise to me. It's been a long time since I've enjoyed carnal pleasures, I admitted. That would suggest that either you don't usually enjoy sex, or you haven't had it lately, Zelda teased. You told me on the phone that Rachel was going away for a week, Zelda continued. Don't worry about me reneging on my promise, but I thought it would be nice if we sat down over a cold drink and discussed what our goals and hopes were for your visit. To be honest, I didn't know what to expect. I guess I left the house hoping for great sex. I know it's presumptuous of me, but you kind of encouraged me on the phone, I answered honestly. I thought about our last conversation for a long time and finally decided I'd had enough of Rachel's crap. Do you expect to have a secret affair with me and just go back to Rachel when she gets back? Wherever she's gone? To tell you the truth, no. I usually call her around 8 o'clock when she's not home, but I'm not calling her today. We had planned a trip to Kentucky this week. She had a week's vacation planned at work, and it wasn't hard for me to squeeze that week out, I stated. 3 days ago, Rachel informed me that she had to go to a seminar in Boston for the week. I tried to talk her out of it. I'd made a few reservations, even though nothing special was planned. But that's not the point. She's pretty much ignored me for most of the last year. She's been spending more and more time at work and less at home. Sex is no longer a topic of discussion. We hardly talk at all. When she's home, she's either sitting at her laptop or on the phone. If we sleep together, will you tell her? Zelda asked. Will you give her a chance to make things right first? Are you thinking about divorce? This is a no-fault divorce state, so it doesn't matter which spouse wants to leave the marriage or who screwed it up. The kids are in college and it's covered by a program that allows us to put money aside in a fund for their education if they go to a state college. We don't have a mortgage. We can sell the house and split the money. I may have to pay her child support, but it will be worth it. Sounds like you're seriously considering divorce? Do you still love her? The quick answer is that I don't love the Rachel I'm married to now, I admitted. I miss the Rachel I married years ago, but I am more than enough of the woman she is now. I'm going to get a divorce no matter what you and I do tonight. Are you worried about being named in the divorce papers? It doesn't make much difference to me, Zelda replied. I've been a widow for 3 years now, so it shouldn't surprise anyone if I get back in the game. I just don't want to be a home wrecker, but you seem to think Rachel has already done that. I have to tell you that I'm not looking for a long-term relationship, Zelda emphasized. I want to be had, to go on dates with various charming men, and to travel. In essence, I'm done grieving, and I want to experience life while I'm still young enough to do so. I don't want you to leave Rachel with the expectation that you and I will have something permanent. That's nice. I don't want to rush into a new commitment anytime soon, I agreed. I've seen too many people leave bad relationships only to immediately enter another one that's just as bad or worse. Maybe I'll try to visit my kids more often. Maybe I'll take up some new hobby like golf or boating, and I feel like I've wasted the last year. Rachel probably won't even notice that I've disappeared from her life because I've become such a small part of it, I reasoned. I found Zelda very easy to talk to, which I did for the next 2 hours. She listened patiently, interrupting me only to clarify some statement or observation I made about Rachel. She was very interested when I mentioned my lineage. She was both surprised and impressed to learn that I was a direct descendant of Henry Clay of Kentucky. He was a senator, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and served as Secretary of State. In the end, I was only listened to, but I found that the presentation of my thoughts and feelings about my marriage enabled me to come to a decision. I was very unhappy in my marriage. It was on artificial life support, and it was time for me to pull the plug on it. Thank you for listening to my problems. It really helped me clarify things and decide on a course of action, I said, hugging Zelda gently at the door. I'm glad you came. I'm also glad you weren't upset that I wasn't naked and on my knees. I just threw that to you to see how concerned you were and how quickly you would react. You were quick, very quick. Now that I think about it, it's embarrassing. In my defense, you are a very attractive woman, and I haven't had much female companionship lately. I appreciate you taking pity on me and letting me share my story. Go home and think about what you really want, Mike. We still have most of the week ahead of us, Zelda pointed out. I've already told you that I want a friends with privileges type relationship with an intelligent and discreet man. Or 2. I don't want to be some dirty secret you have to keep. I totally agree, Zelda. If I want to stay married, I'm not going to step over my marriage. I have to admit that I'm leaning toward no longer living as a married bachelor, if that makes any sense. Maybe I should have said single married man. Mike, you're living like a damn monk, not like any normal married or single man, Zelda stated. If you don't like it, change it. Either make her your real wife or use the divorce law to get rid of her. I called Zelda on Tuesday afternoon. I had met with a divorce lawyer today. He thought I looked like a man ready to get a divorce and start fresh. No shit, Mike, Zelda said. I wonder what he does for a living. Incredible observation for a divorce lawyer, don't you think? Okay, no need to be sarcastic, I replied with a chuckle. He's my mother's closest cousin, and I've known him all my life. I trust the guy. He listened to all my complaints, shook his head a few times, and finally called me a dumbass for staying with Rachel for so long. He's preparing divorce papers for me. Promised I could pick them up tomorrow afternoon. I'll hand them to Rachel when she gets home. I can't wait. And when is Rachel coming home? Zelda asked. I don't think I'll want to be around when all this happens. I don't know exactly. I haven't talked to her since she left or listened to the details of her itinerary because I was so angry at her for leaving. I guess it will be next Friday or Saturday since the seminar will probably end on Friday, I reasoned. She left on Sunday, so she'll have a full week on Saturday, which she mentioned several times. Now that's marriage, Mike. Your wife went to Boston, but you don't know why, for how long, or if she's actually in Boston. Yes, my lawyer also noted the lack of details about Rachel's plans. He thought it indicated that I wasn't very interested in Rachel and her career. It made me feel pretty pathetic as a husband. I'm ready to fix my lack of interest in my wife's situation. I'm going to get rid of that frigid bitch. Looks like you finally made a decision, Mike. Why don't we go out to dinner tomorrow night and celebrate you finally being reunited with your balls? Zelda suggested. Wednesday was a momentous day for me. I picked up the divorce papers to hand to Rachel, enjoyed my first ever taco de birria, and had sex for the first time in 6 months. Zelda was an eye-opener for me. She invited me out for drinks after our dinner at Taco Bell. I used my full set of tricks on her, and she reacted like a wildcat. I was almost tempted to gawk at her point blank, but I didn't know where she was or who was with her, despite her claim that she hadn't had sex in 3 years. On Thursday, I called Zelda again. I'm loaded and ready to go. Would you like to have dinner with me tonight before your bell rings? I'm sorry, Mike. My sister's visiting, and she'll be here any minute. Can I get an extension? I understand. How about Friday night? You'll be needed by then. My sister will still be here Friday night. She's staying with me for 2 weeks, so put some other lucky girl on your schedule for the foreseeable future, Zelda replied before passing out. Friday night, I was watching an adult movie when Rachel suddenly appeared in the bedroom doorway. At that moment, I decided to give her one last chance. Hey, baby, it's so good to have you home. You're a lucky girl. Why don't you fondle me and then climb on top of this bad boy? That's such a tempting offer, Mike. Is it hard to refuse, or should I say half-hard to refuse? There's no easy way to say it, so I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm divorcing you, Mike. What? Why? That lying bitch Zelda told you some bullshit? She doesn't take no for an answer. She's really not your friend, Rachel. She stabbed you in the back to get a shot at me. Mike, please listen to me for once, Rachel insisted. I want you to hear and understand why I'm divorcing you. Try to understand the words that will come out of my mouth. Understand? You're the one in denial. If we get divorced, I'll do everything I can to make sure I don't have to pay you a dime in alimony. You'll have to survive on the few bucks you bring home from that crappy job of yours. Remember, I'm the engineer in this marriage. Mike, your company calls you a sanitation engineer. That's not really an engineer. It's a term your employer uses to make you and the other guys feel better about your jobs. This week was a big week for me. I got promoted again. I'm now a regional manager at All Farm State Insurance. My salary was raised again, so I will be making in the neighborhood of 6 figures. I've decided to take complete control of my life, including divorcing you. You've been planning this for a long time. That's why we haven't had sex. You were trying to wean yourself off me, I suddenly realized. Mike, you're still delusional. You never talk about anything but yourself and your weird personal preferences. You suffer from the problem of premature ejaculation. You are selfish and self-absorbed in bed. That's why I avoid having sex with you. It's a really terrible experience. Yeah? Ask your ex-girlfriend Zelda about her impressions of my sexual prowess. She's not some withered old maid like you. She loves sex, and she especially loves the way I fuck her, I proudly proclaimed. Mike, she's my best friend. I asked her if I was being unreasonable in my expectations of my husband. She agreed to sleep with you to get an honest, unbiased opinion. I bet she's glad she agreed, I replied with a smirk. Zelda told me you finished 3 times. You forgot to mention and probably didn't even realize you did. Zelda didn't have a single finish. She didn't even come close to it. She said you spent over 2 hours telling her about your family tree and genealogy. Zelda said it was probably the most boring conversation she had ever been a part of. I understand her pain. Why did you decide to divorce me after all these years? I asked. We have 2 children together. Why do you want to end a good thing? It occurred to me that divorcing Rachel would leave me in a bad position. I was barely making enough money to live, let alone the lifestyle I enjoyed. I figured she was downplaying my abilities in bed, trying to shake my confidence. Just because she didn't have a sex drive didn't mean I had to do without one. I decided to convince her that I could live without sex as long as she was there for me. She was very proud to have me as her husband. She would never give up on me if she could keep me. Rachel, I realize you've never liked sex. That's okay. I can live with that. As long as we're together, I'll be happy. Sex with you has never been very good. That's true, Rachel admitted. However, I've found that it can be quite enjoyable when I'm with a man who knows what he's doing. Did you cheat on me, Rachel? Are you a whore after all? I'm using your cheating as grounds for divorce. You'll support me for the rest of my life. Mike, you know everything. You even admitted to Zelda that you know we live in a no-fault divorce state. That and the fact that you have no proof of infidelity on my part makes that argument moot. Plus, I was waiting for Zelda to tell me you screwed her before I took Tim Roberts for a test drive, Rachel replied with an evil smirk. Technically, you cheated first. I never meant for it to turn out this way, I whined. I wish you hadn't gone to Boston. I've arranged a great vacation for us. You would have loved it, and nothing would have happened. Honestly, Mike, it was your vacation plans that finally convinced me I needed a divorce. Visiting cemeteries and graveyards in every zip code in Kentucky is not a vacation. It's more like Dante's Inferno.